So it's my very proud and honour to introduce Candice Mason. And Candice will be going through a lot of, I imagine, her journey of how she became to be known as Mother Cuppa. Very excited about today, especially when you look at the title, which is Overcoming Barriers with Natural Ingredients. And, you know, we try on these 5 webinars, we try and bring you leading edge, up-to-date methodologies around looking after your mental health, but also obviously looking after your physical health as well. And what we do is we bring on these wonderful, fantastic experts who then sort of take us through how we can help ourselves both mentally and physically with their message and their story. So I'm not going to whistle on anymore, especially as it's quite loud my end. So Candice Mason, Overcoming Barriers with Natural Ingredients, over to you.
Well, thank you, Simon, and I hope that I live up to that high talking. So let me just move through these slides. Simon has just put together the first few just so that you feel safe and comfortable with the conversation that I'm going to have. So I'll just hook right in. So basically, my name is Candice. I am, as Simon explained, founder to Mother Cuppa. And yes, it is an intentional play on words. I'll come back to why I named the company Mother Cuppa shortly. But I just thought I would begin with a bit of an introduction into how on earth someone would end up going down the route of blending herbal teas for their health and well-being. So my journey goes back about 20 years. I was diagnosed with a condition called endometriosis. It's a female hormone condition. It basically means the lining of my womb doesn't grow in the same way as most women's wombs would line. And in fact, the substance of the lining grows in other parts of my body and sort of comes out of my womb. It's quite unpleasant. Most sufferers of endometriosis have considerable pain around their monthly cycles, which can be challenging. The lining that can be found within the body, there are some studies that have found it right up into people's brains. But in my instance, the substance was found around my womb, bowels and bladder. And in fact, it is like an adhesive substance. So a lot of my organs were actually fused together. And I had to undergo quite a major operation to have that sorted out. As a result of that operation, the next stage of treatment was, in fact, to put my body into a medically induced menopause, which I underwent in my early 20s. So I can tell you, anybody who knows anything about the menopause, going through that in your early 20s isn't so much fun and games. And I was quite unwell for a while, and I was on a lot of medication. And I just didn't feel that that was the right pathway to supporting my body, to just continually be taking medicine after medicine after medicine. And when I was first diagnosed, there wasn't the internet or social media, that's how old I am, to go and search around and find things. And so I got a book from my local library that they ordered in from somewhere else in the country. And within the book was a section around lifestyle and how changes to your lifestyle might support you on this journey. And within that chapter was a whole section around natural medicinal plants. So off I trotted down to my local health food shop, where you then found me sort of every other week, sort of in there saying, right, what have you got for this problem that I'm having this week, and what have you got for that problem that I'm having? And in fact, the lady in there was so knowledgeable, and she would share all sorts of ingredients, or she'd, you know, I'd go in and she'd say, oh, I've got something that's just going to be perfect for you. Why don't you try this? And actually, one of the ways in which to take some of those natural supplements are to blend them into teas. And so that's where my journey began. Let me just move on here. Now, when you're faced with quite an uncomfortable medical issue, it can have barriers around your sort of mental well-being, I suppose. It can feel quite challenging to be uncomfortable for long periods of time. And it, you know, I did used to get quite down about it. It'd be really hard to stay positive. And what I found from blending the teas was not only did the ingredients like massively support me, but I actually found the art of blending herbal teas to be quite therapeutic. And so it's been something that I've gone back to throughout my life. And in more recent years, I made the decision to give up coffee completely about 15 years ago. And in the lockdowns, for those of you who do know me, or for those of you who don't, my husband and I run a family bus and coach business, which was really badly impacted by the lockdowns, and my sleep was the first thing to go. And I put that down to being quite stressed and having a lot sort of going on in my head during that time. And what happened was I'd started waking with anxiety attacks in the middle of the night in my sleep. So it wasn't very pleasant. It was quite frightening, actually. I actually thought I was having a heart attack the first time it happened. And this went on and off for about 6 months. And each time that happened, I needed to come up with some techniques to help me to calm down. I've never suffered with anxiety attacks before, and they are quite debilitating and they feel quite overwhelming. So what I would do is just get up at sort of 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and start blending teas. And in fact, I'm drinking what I've blended. I don't know if you can see that. This is my Relax blend. So I'll talk about the ingredients in the tea in just a minute. But it was the Relax blend that made me think, okay, now I need to start sharing this with other people. So I'm going to go on and tell you a bit about that. So my fascination with medicinal herbs, I'm not the only one with a fascination. We're a big community out there. But medicinal herbs have about a 60,000 year history behind them. And nearly every single medication that we take today derives from a plant-based ingredient. And the medication has been added to support, synthetic medicines have been added to support that plant-based ingredient. So it is worth having a little look what's in your cupboards at home and what medication you're taking. But I feel fairly confident that nearly all of them will have a plant-based ingredient within them. And obviously 60,000 years ago, we didn't have synthetic medications. And so it was plants that were the first choice for people. And I feel that there is absolutely a time and a place for medication, but I feel strongly that it shouldn't be the first thing we reach for, and that we should try other options that are available to us. And the other options could be around the exercise that we're doing, the foods that we're eating, and in my case, the diet and herbs in particular. And I've gone on to become quite fascinated around gut health and what we can do to support that. And herbs play a really magnificent role within that. So there are plenty of studies out there surrounding the benefits of herbs in particular. I read recently about the use of lavender in some ICU units, and they gave some of the patients lavender and some not. And then they monitored their anxieties, their sleep, so on and so forth. And it was a really important study and quite most recent study that I've seen on lavender, and it showed that the people that had had lavender within their supplements beforehand had a much more improved sleep and had also reported feelings of calm amongst their well-being. But there are plenty of studies out there on the varying different herbs and ingredients, and they can show reductions in anxiety levels, but also in mood boosting. And the reason for that is that depending on what type of plant you're taking, the plants will interact within the nervous system or within the liver or within your neurotransmitters. So they're really well known for bringing about balances, and the types of herb for different types of conditions will support that. So a personal favourite of mine is adaptogen plants. Now, you might not have heard of adaptogen plants. Some of you may have heard of mushroom coffees, or you might have heard of the ingredient ashwagandha. In fact, ashwagandha is my absolute all-time favourite ingredient. So adaptogen plants, I shall go on in a minute and explain a little bit more about that. But it literally, as in the title, it adapts what's happening within your body. So really, really great one to have. There are many herbs and plant-based ingredients that provide you with natural anxiolytics and natural sedatives. So for me in particular, when I was feeling overwhelmed and anxious during those lockdowns, it was the anxiolytics and natural sedatives that really supported me during that time. Most herbal ingredients are absolutely jam-packed full of antioxidants, and we know that we should be eating punnets of blueberries and bunches of broccoli, but plants actually have as much antioxidants in them. And antioxidants are really important because they're fighting sort of what's known as free radicals within the body, and it's the free radicals that attack your immune systems and your nervous systems and can make you feel quite rotten. So plants that are full of antioxidants really are quite important to our bodies and our well-being. So as I said, adaptogen plants are really important. Now I've missed quite a key part to my story and my journey, which I will just explain. So there I am, lockdowns, not able to sleep. I'm having anxiety attacks in the middle of the night. We come out of lockdown, and unfortunately some of those symptoms didn't disappear. Other things were going on in my body, so I finally trotted off to the GP. Obviously, first thing the GP wanted to do was give me sleeping tablets and anxiety tablets, and I said no, something's not right. We're not going down that route just yet. That will be my last resort. So some blood tests later have shown that I am in fact in early perimenopause, and that's as a result of the treatment that I had nearly 20 years ago. And so adaptogen plants form a massive part of my hormone journey. The reason for that is that they allow your body to stay in a resistance phase for longer. So if your body is having hormone surges or has stress on the body, the adaptogens literally interact with the hormone level cortisol and help to keep your body in a resistance phase for longer. And it stops you getting that slump, that mood, fatigue. It's just helping you to get through the day. They bring about an equilibrium on the body, so also known as homeostasis, or in our words, balance. So if you're having a very stressful period in your life, or indeed, as I found myself with raging hormones, adaptogens are a really great one to add. I've also spotted some studies around how adaptogens are supporting people with neurodiversion. So in particular ADHD, often you'll find you're also getting those peaks of stress and noise on the body, and adaptogen plants are being shown to have a really good benefit to people who are struggling with that. And really, they're special plants because they themselves have to resist the stresses of the world out there. And I really quite like that. I feel a little bit at one with nature, not to sound too fluffy, a little bit at one with nature when I've got adaptogen plants in my system. I wanted to bring up this particular subject because normally when I talk to people about herbal tea, they tell me how much they love coffee, which really makes me laugh, but it is a good opener to a conversation. So I'm a trained tea sommelier, so it's very difficult for me to avoid caffeine at all times because I taste teas, and tea has caffeine within it. But there is a difference between the caffeine that you get in coffee and the caffeine that you get in tea. I've become quite fascinated by this subject because it's definitely a divide. You are either an absolute coffee lover who couldn't imagine getting through the day without a cup of coffee, or you are quite curious what coffee is doing to your body. And that's where I found myself some 15 years ago. I read an article about the way in which the caffeine from coffee interacts with your adrenal glands, which then causes a surge in spike to your cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone within your body. I'm not making this up. This isn't me saying it. You're very welcome to go and have a little Google out there. But ultimately what I was finding was that where I couldn't keep my moods in check, maybe mostly around wrong time of the month. So ladies, if we're struggling with a bit of PMS, or you've ever Googled how bad is PMS, am I the worst person in the world, it might just be worth having a little think about coffee and what it's doing, because those spikes in that cortisol hormone are not making you feel the best and are not keeping your body in balance on your hormones. The caffeine in tea is actually a very good sort of caffeine. It's called L-theanine. It's not the same as the caffeine that we get in tea. And I'm talking about black tea here. So your PG Tips and your Yorkshire is a preferred favourite, Earl Grey, if you like that sort of thing. So that ingredient has a caffeine substance in it called L-theanine. The difference between the caffeine that you get in coffee and the caffeine that you get in tea is L-theanine is a much slower releasing type of caffeine. So unlike coffee, where you will have your morning cup of coffee and you're ready to take on the world, the caffeine in tea, the L-theanine, is much more slower releasing, and so it should help to keep you sustained throughout the day. You'll also find an abundance of L-theanine in green tea, so that's a really nice option. But they do both have the ability to interact with your sleep. So if you're a person that is struggling with sleep, can I suggest that it's worth having a little go without coffee and just seeing what happens? You don't have to give it up forever and ever, but you might just want to have a little try and see if it makes any difference. The caffeine that you take at midday will still be within your system at 10 o'clock at night when you're trying to go to bed. So it is always recommended to take caffeine in the mornings and try and reduce that. There's a special ratio. If you have a little Google of that, you'll see what the ratio is of when you take your coffee and when it is still in your system. I'll talk to you about some of the benefits of the teas that I've produced. I've actually just gotten a little bit lost on my slides here, mainly because I'm talking to myself over here. So firstly, if you're interested in herbal teas or indeed plant-based supplements, medical supplements, just double check with your GP if you're on any sort of medications. So if you're on medication for autoimmune illnesses or on any sort of heart medication, just double check. There are a couple of very powerful, and this is how powerful herbs can be, ingredients that won't support that medication that you're on. So just double check. I've got ladies who are currently purchasing tea from me who are undergoing chemotherapy for cancer treatments. So herbal ingredients are recommended by the NHS for people going through cancer treatments. But again, just double check, just depending on what stage you're at and the type of medication that you're having, check. Herbal teas are a really lovely addition to somebody going through that very difficult period in their life, but always just double check. When you're looking for a herbal tea supplement, a couple of tips that I can suggest to you are, firstly, the stuff you're buying on the supermarket shelf, your Tesco's, Twinings, I won't name too many labels, I don't want to upset anyone. They're probably not doing huge amounts to your body. When I did my tea sommelier qualification, in fact, we were taught that commodity teas, so what we're getting on our supermarket shelf, are in fact practically just floor sweepings of the main ingredient that go through the manufacturing machines. So just be really mindful that if you're looking to start drinking herbal tea, you're wanting something that has really whole plant chunks in it. The bigger the chunks, the better they're going to be for you and your well-being. And our herbs can be added to more than just tea. Of course, that's my favourite subject to talk about. But in fact, herbs can be added when you're cooking. So to your salads, or if you're making a curry or a stew. There is a wonderful man out there called Tim Spector. I'm hoping some of you might have heard of him. He is known as the gut health doctor. And Tim Spector talks about looking after our gut health as much as we do our brain health, and in fact the gut being almost like the second brain of the body and needing a lot of care and attention. But one of the things he suggests is trying to get 30 different plant-based ingredients within your diet each week, and he's a massive advocate of herbs being a contributor to that. So if, for example, your breakfast consisted of, I don't know, eggs and spinach, cup of herbal tea, then you had a salad with some seeds and nuts on it, maybe you had a piece of fruit in the afternoon, and then you had a nice curry in the evening, getting to that 30 plant-based ingredients within your diet in a week actually would be quite manageable. So he's a great one to go and have a little look at, actually, in the gut health, and herbal ingredients supporting that is really interesting. The internet is a minefield of plant-based goodness. So there's a couple of good websites that are worth having a little look at. The Healthy Living website, and you can just go in there and search a plant-based ingredient. And for me, my favourite place is the health food shop to have a chat. Usually the ladies in there are, or gentlemen, are normally very, very knowledgeable around the different herbs and plants that might support you if you have a particular ailment. Also, you could go foraging, which is one of my more recent adventures. So I like to go out into the hedgerows at different times of year and see what I can find. And like I say, I think there's something really nourishing on your well-being thought process around going out and looking for your own food and bringing it home and cooking it in your meal. There's a lovely TikTok video I did recently of making a pesto with wild garlic and nettles. So you're very welcome to come and check me out on TikTok if you should so wish. But of course, I'm also very happy to answer any questions. I'm not so expert as Simon described me on all specific medical ailments, but I'm very happy to try and point people in the right direction. No, hang on a second, let me just go back. So the 3 T's that you will find on my website, Mother Cuppa, are energize, hydrate, and relax. And I'm on the relax now because I was feeling really nervous about doing this. So energize, because let's face it, we all need a little bit extra to get us through the day. But when you find yourself in perimenopause, the surging decline of your estrogen actually can make you feel quite fatigued. Lots of people that I have spoken to trying to reduce the amount of coffee they're drinking and are looking at different alternative ingredients, but equally need that sustainable hit of energy throughout the day. So the Energize blend is a really good one. I've made the main ingredient with that in that ashwagandha, again, just to fight that, keep your body in that resistance phase for longer during the day, to bring about some equilibrium on those surging hormones. There's also Schizandra berry in there, another very powerful adaptogen herb. It's got hibiscus, which is full of antioxidants in there, and it's got beetroot, which is what will support you with stamina. Now, some of those ingredients I've listed are taken by Olympic athletes, so I felt that they had a very good place in the tea that I was producing. Now, I want to just say, you're not going to drink that tea and be able to run a marathon. I should probably say I'm not a miracle worker. Herbal tea, it's a bit like you can't eat one salad a week and expect to be a size 10 and fit it into your summer bikini body. It's about sustained consistency. So add herbal teas into your lifestyle, and over time you will start to really notice the benefits, but you're not going to see it after 1 cup. Sorry about that, if that's what you were hoping for. I wish I could do that for people. The second blend that we've produced is the Hydrate blend. Now, most of the population are about 2% dehydrated most of the time, so we are not getting enough fluid and water into our body. Because we're all so busy, mostly because we forget, because we get a bit bored of water. But actually the knock-on effect to being dehydrated is quite significant, particularly on your mental well-being. So dehydration is known to damage your cognitive ability each day. Your brain needs a lot of fluid because it's an electrical circuit ultimately, so it needs to get its sparks from the fluid. So the more water we can drink, the better. And if you throw into that any sort of hormonal changes, and I probably should mention that men take a decline in hormones as well as they get past a certain age, but those hormone declines and those surges of hormones are also impacting your hydration levels. You get those if you're a female around the wrong time of the month, or as I said, as you get a bit more mature, your hormones mucking around. And then throw in there a hot flush and you're probably a lot more than 2% dehydrated. So being dehydrated is counterproductive to you wanting to tackle hot flushes, or indeed keep your brain and brain fog and brain sort of firing on all cylinders. So hydration really is such a fundamental part of your well-being and your health. So we've blended the Hydrate blend to support you with that. And the final tea, which I'm demonstrating today, is my Relax blend. It has a special place in my heart, this tea, because it really has helped me through some quite tricky times. It's made predominantly of natural anxiolytics and sedatives. And again, I can't promise you that you're going to drink this tea and sleep through the night, or indeed never have an anxiety attack again, but it does bring about a sense of calm. It's really good for the end of the day. But as you can see, I was feeling a little bit nervous, so I thought I would add that to my day. Oh, gosh, now my mobile's going. Get rid of that. So the main ingredients in this are lavender, quinoa, and oat flowering tops. So it's the lavender that's a natural anxiolytic. The oat flowering tops are the natural sedative, as is quinoa, of which oat flowering tops and quinoa are known to nourish the nervous system. So they're a really good addition to your week. I hope I've covered everything, and I think that is me, Candice from Mother Cuppa. I think let's just see, Simon, if you're there. Sorry, was I talking too fast?
Struggling to know where to go with this, because the problem is I don't see these webinars or the slides before our guests come on and deliver it, and so everything is new to me, and so as let's finish this final slide. Thank you so much, Candice. I will be talking to you in a moment. Let's get rid of this, because there's so many questions coming out of my ears here. So please join us if you loved today. Hopefully you'll come back and visit us on Wednesday, the 28th of June. It's not actually called Menopause XXX. That was my bad editing. It is actually about how to support, how to get through the menopause. And Sheila Law delivers lots of menopause training, which ties in very nicely to what you were saying, Candice. It's almost like hopefully you can come back on the 28th of June.
Yes, I definitely will. Yes.
As an attendee. If you'd like to stop sharing, Candice, because let's talk to each other rather than, there we go. Thank you so much. First of all, anybody on the call, obviously if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat for Candice. The first things that were rolling through my head, and I wrote down loads of notes as well, was obviously it's when you said new radicals. And my immediate, I just have sort of digression thought processes all the time. And obviously the new radicals are a band, and they got their name from the new radicals that you were discussing. So apologies if my first question seems to be completely unrelated to to the tea there. It's just my thought process went straight down the new radicals route, which was a very eclectic sort of 90s band, I think. That
Yes.
I don't even know if you heard of it. The thing that really struck me was not only how brave you were talking about your personal journey, which is we're really grateful for that honesty, but just how helpful these natural ingredients are for our mental well-being. And and it's we know we are what we eat and we are what we drink, and I'm always very aware that anything that I can give to any of our watchers, listeners, any of that information, and I always talk about eating healthfully. And I think what's brilliant with your teas, with those natural ingredients in the first place, is just how much of an impact they can have on your gut, on your thought process, and actually to ease your pain as well.
I think for me, it's that whole, the herbal tea is a contribution to a whole lifestyle change over the years. I I'm much more in tune with my body as I've gotten older, something we don't have the luxury of when we're a little bit younger. I know that if I eat certain foods, you know, I might get a headache, or I might not function so well at work. I know that if my body is under stress, that I don't perform so well, particularly around this, my sort of monthly cycles don't go so great. I know that if I haven't had time out in the fresh air looking after myself, that my body doesn't do well. So for me, the herbal tea sort of encompasses all of that, because it supports my journey with eating well. I'm forever sort of now, my new sort of favourite thing is rummaging around hedgerows and seeing what I can find in there. So that's becoming quite fascinating. And I really meant what I said. It's a bit like people who sort of really enjoy gardening. There's something really therapeutic about that practice of being around plants. And I feel that when I'm blending herbal teas, I wish I could send the smell of the Relax blend down the screen to you, Simon, because I really thought about this not just being about the ingredients that are in it, but the smell and the whole sort of ritual around having a cup of tea. You know, and we're very typically British, aren't we? And you know, cup of tea will sort everything out. But actually, what about if that cup of tea was full of really great ingredients that could really work twice as hard for us? So that's sort of where I'm coming from with that, really.
I'm really sorry, Candice. I've just been rushed in with those things. Is that I hadn't opened the chat, so people have got to. I've opened it all now.
Okay.
So if and I know someone had put their hand up as well in the background. I do apologise. The chat is open now. If you would like to put in because it's a webinar, we don't typically. I sometimes sort of struggle to get people to talk and then not to talk, so we are sort of thing. So there was
anything
people,
like me, they're always sort of listening to things on in the background and trying to multitask.
So there we go. There's our first question, and I'm so sorry, Cheryl. Thank you so much for letting us know that nobody could actually write anything, even though I'm asking people for questions. The opinion of the value of cold pressed ginger shots.
That is a really interesting question. Thanks, Cheryl. That is a great question. So yeah, look, I'm a huge advocate of ginger. I mean, it's a really powerful ingredient. It's probably one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory ingredients that we can get. We can also get that turmeric as well, and I think you can get shots of that. So yes, no, I am a very big advocate. The thing that I would be wanting to look for if I was taking those shot drinks, yes, they're saying they take it for the joint pain. Yes, turmeric, yes, excellent anti-inflammatory ingredient for joint pain. And sadly, us ladies, maybe, I'm hoping you're younger than me, or maybe you're feeling that a little bit as you're sort of getting a little older. Just check that there aren't any other nasties in there. So some of the commercial stuff that you buy at the supermarket also includes things like sugars or aspartames, other sort of non-natural ingredients. And really, for the best benefit, to have something in its most natural form is the best way to take it. So I believe with those shots, they literally take the raw ginger and they just blend it down. I mean, you can make them yourself at home. You don't always have time, and convenience is very important to our very busy lives. But it is, you know, have a go at making some of these at home. Some people have, you know, got juicers or sort of blenders. If you're making a smoothie, ginger and frozen ginger from Iceland would work just as well. So there's been a lot of studies around frozen plant-based ingredients and how they can hold their natural nutritional content. Actually, what we find with foods is the more processed it is, the less nutritional value it has. So I always like to use the example of a potato. So if you take a potato and you chop it and boil it and then roast it for your Sunday dinner, you've effectively killed most of the nutrients through the fact that you've boiled it and roasted it. But actually, if you'd have just had it as a boiled potato, it would have retained some of its nutrients. So yeah, as close to its natural form is what I would say, and just watch for added sugars, because they're no good for us.
You've just ruined the roasty for me.
Yeah, sorry, and I am. Look, I want to be a realist, okay? I like a roast potato, sorry, Simon. I'm a real person. I maintain my life as best as I can, but I don't always manage a plant-based diet, and I don't always manage to get to the gym 3 times a week. And sometimes you'll find me curling in the corner crying because I haven't managed to achieve everything that week. That's just real life. But I guess my thought process is to not stop learning and trying to apply certain things, and actually you find the things that work really well for you. For me, tea can fit into my day really nice and easy, so that's been my go-to.
The webinar yesterday, and on the five ways of well-being, and one of the key things was I should have used you as an example, but it was, you know, healthy eating and looking after our gut, and you know, and yeah, and we all know it, but we don't do it. I mean, I spent a little bit of time yesterday talking to people how to get a good night's sleep, don't drink alcohol, go and get some exercise and healthy eat. And yesterday I had a glass of red wine. I didn't get a good night's sleep. So sometimes we don't always manage to get how far we do we?
That's real life. I think being aware of those things. So Simon and I also have stopped. I'm on a sober journey is probably a good way to describe it. I've been on and off of it since about 2018, and sometimes I'm winning with it and sometimes I'm not. But I do notice if I go through a period in my life where I've had a lot to drink, or I've had successions of weekends out and what have you, it just does nothing to my sleep. It does nothing to enhance my well-being. And I might get one good boogie out of me on one Saturday night, and that is about all you're going to get. The fallout for me from having alcohol is it carries on into days afterwards, and so it was taking more from me than it was giving. And so I find that with certain foods. So I can't eat, really randomly, I can't eat part-baked loaves of bread, you know, the little baguettes and things like that. It just really aggravates my stomach. I get funny migraines. I feel really lethargic with it. And again, it's a product that I know takes more from my body than it gives me. And so that's a question I would sort of pose myself, is what's it adding to me? Am I prepared to have what the consequences might be? And sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not.
And drink doing for me, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you know, we get these wonderful guests on, as Candice has said, not necessarily to promote anything, but we do know that Candice has a huge wealth of background and knowledge in this. All of Candice's information will be going into the show notes when this video gets put up on the Thrive YouTube channel, but it will obviously include the Mother Cuppa website link. Kelly, my wife, and I have tried all of Candice's lovely, wonderful teas, and they do genuinely have an impact. But as again, you know, this is one small part of our overall journey, isn't it? Into you know,
yeah,
thinking better and feeling better. We are literally at the top of the webinar. Is there any more questions? I did notice that Cheryl just put in a comment there about grandma puts water back into, or grandma did put water back in.
Oh yeah, I know what she's talking about. She's talking about the roast potatoes. Yeah, so Cheryl, gosh, me and your grandma probably would get on really, really well, because I would pour any water that I've cooked vegetables in would go into my gravy, because that's where it's got all of the nutrients in there. So yeah,
it's just, yeah, you put the start, you know,
tiny bits and pieces. Like I say, I'm fascinated by what I put in my body and what the outcome is. So, and it's been something I've done for a very long time. So I think if you're starting out on wondering that sort of plant-based, I would just say, just start really small. Nobody's expecting you to give up your roast potatoes, Simon. But 1 cup of Mother Cuppa a day might do you brilliantly.
It might just hit that balance. And we have got literally one last question there. Is it worth switching to decaf coffee for those who can't give it up? I know this is not a tea related question.
Yeah, no, and I've noticed, so I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and I must have spoken to several hundred ladies during that event, and they were all asking a similar question. Yes, decaf coffee is a good option for you. I definitely think after midday, don't have any coffee. It's not great, especially us ladies. It's not helping us a lot. But yeah, decaf coffee is fine. And of course, herbal tea. I've got to advocate herbal tea as being an alternative option. I think the thing with coffee is sometimes it's then people add sugar, or maybe they're adding a syrup, or maybe they're adding a milk, and dairy is another subject which we won't go into right now, but again, just something to be mindful of. But yeah, I'm more tea and he's more coffee. Oh well, that sounds like,
yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like we've triggered a Phil versus Cheryl conversation there in the background.
That's like me and my husband. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
wonderful.
And the other divide I get is when I talk and I do events for my skills as a tea sommelier, and people keep telling me that they wouldn't give their Yorkshire tea up. So Yorkshire tea is a big you know, a brand that people love. So yeah, I have to be really careful that I don't go offending people all of the time.
Natural ingredients from Yorkshire and call it Mother
That's it.
Cuppa
Yeah, I
Yorkshire.
could definitely do that. I could definitely do that.
Candice, thank you so much for being on
No, thank
the
you.
Thrive monthly webinar. It's been eye-opening for me. I'm actually, because I, as I say, all the information I want to rob all of that personally, so I can
Yeah.
pass that on to people around our healthy eating and stuff.
Come and give me a follow on Instagram or TikTok or whatever your favorite platform is, because I do share regularly sort of little benefits around different ingredients to support people, and I've got a really nice community, particularly on Instagram, of ladies asking lots of questions, so she'll be able to find something that supports
We will
you.
include all of Candice's social
you.
media attributes when we put the video up. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you everyone who'll be watching the replay. Really important to remember, we're back here 28th of June, Sheila Lord, who will be talking to us about the menopause. So once again, thank you so much, Candice, and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Nice to see you, Simon.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.